So you're scrolling through your feed and you see President Trump making a declaration that he wants to stop Wall Street from buying single family homes. And your immediate reaction is anger and frustration because that must be the reason why that the inventory level is still low and prices are still high. Makes sense. And if you've been house hunting here in the San Jose metro or anywhere here in the Bay Area lately, and you've seen the low inventory of single family homes that you would actually want to buy, and you're still losing out to higher bidders, that narrative feels 100% true. And it's easy to picture a guy in a suit in New York skyscraper outbidding you by $50,000 to turn your dream home into a permanent rental. But this image, it's actually a myth. Hi, I'm Steve Moon, your San Jose realtor. Welcome to my channel, where we discuss housing market and lifestyle here in the San Jose metro area. This myth about hedge fund home buyers is prevalent out there due to hype in social media. According to one survey, people thought that this was the number one reason for high housing costs. 48% of those surveyed thought that investors were driving up prices. But today, we're going to look at the actual data from 2025 and into 2026. We're going to talk about what is really happening, why the headlines are so loud, and how you can actually win in a market like Silicon Valley. Because the truth is a lot more interesting and honestly, a lot more empowering for you as a buyer than this whole corporate takeover myth suggests, especially as we move forward with a lowering mortgage rate situation. Let's start with the what are the big guys actually doing? Nationally, institutional investors, and we're talking about the massive firms that own 100 homes or more, they only accounted for about 1.2% of all home purchases in 2025. So think about that. Out of every 100 homes sold, only about one went to a giant corporation. And where these investors are actually buying homes in bulk will also affect prices, as we will see later. So if it's not Wall Street, who are you actually losing to? It's the mom and pop factor. This is the why behind the confusion. When you see a stat saying that investors bought something like 25% of homes last quarter, they're usually lumping everybody together. And in reality, about 85% of those investors are what we call mom and pop landlords who own less than five properties. And this is your neighbor who bought a second condo for retirement, or maybe a family that kept their old starter home in Willow Glen to rent out when they upsized. In the Bay Area, our investor problem is actually a wealthy neighbor problem. We have a high concentration of high income professionals, folks that work from NVIDIA, Apple, and Google, who are using their tech stock gains to buy property. And here's a quick story. I recently had a client, let's call her Sarah. She was convinced that she lost a house in Cambrian Park to a corporate shark because that offer was all cash and 100K over asking. And when we dug into it after the closing, we discovered that the buyer wasn't a corporation. It was a local engineer who had been sitting on restricted stock for several years and wanted to have his children live near their grandparents. That's the Bay Area reality. You aren't competing with a faceless fund, you're competing with tech bro cash from their stock options. There's a logical reason why the big guys aren't scooping up every house in San Jose. The math simply doesn't work for them. Large institutional funds look for three things: low entry prices, high rental yields, and easy regulation. San Jose has none of that. Our median home price is hovering around 1.5 to 1.7 million. And if a big firm wants to buy a home for 1.6 million, they'd have to rent it out for about 10,000 a month or more just to break even after taxes and maintenance. And most people who can afford 10,000 K in rent are just going to simply buy their own house. Plus, California's tenant protection and rent laws make it much riskier for a giant corporation compared to states like Arizona, Florida, or Texas. And by the way, Because of slowing housing markets in the rest of the country, institutional investors actually started to sell off their inventory rather than buying them. And as of the middle of 2025, much more of them were dumping their inventory. How can you win? So, if the villain isn't a giant corporation, how can you handle the real competition? Stop waiting for the crash caused by an investor sell off. Since they don't own the majority of the housing stock here, Trump's declaration isn't going to crash the market by them leaving the market en masse. But with this continuation and trend of mortgage rates going downward, and with the rates now at the lowest level in the past 3 years, we're going to be seeing more inventory coming on the market in anticipation of more buyers returning to take advantage of the lowering mortgage rates. Focus on micro markets. So in the Bay Area, one zip code can be a war zone while the one next door is really cool. So, for example, West San Jose moves in about 16 days, but you might find more leverage in parts of Santa Teresa in San Jose, or maybe with certain townhome communities. Target the days on market sweet spot. In 2026, the leverage window opens after a house has been sitting on the market 30 days or more. That's when you can come in and negotiate for repair credits or mortgage rate buy downs. So take advantage. The bottom line, the headlines want you to feel like the game is rigged so that you'll click the link or maybe watch throughout the entirety of the video. But the truth is that the Bay Area housing market is driven by a lack of supply, rising building costs, and a lot of local high earners, not a Wall Street conspiracy. These are long term systemic issues that cannot be corrected by the proclamation of a president with the stroke of a pen. The good news heading into 2026 is that the mortgage rates are hovering just over 5%, which is a huge psychological barrier for both buyers and sellers. We are already hearing of very busy open houses and increasing of mortgage applications, all signs of a busier season ahead. If you're ready to stop stressing about headlines and start looking at the actual houses that's available in Silicon Valley, let's talk. I can show you exactly what's selling, who's buying, and where you actually have a chance to win and get some good deals. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you learned something and hope to see you in the next video.